The nature of the modern day means you can pretty much whatever old wrestling match you want. All you gotta do is search for it and sooner or later, there it shall be. The thing is, it's not always the best idea. Even though we think otherwise, certain fights are best left in the past even if you think you enjoyed them at the time. Be it because they've aged badly or because a catalogue of errors serve to derail it entirely, they should exist in memory only. Please don't drug them back into your life. Despite me shouting that out loud though, people aren't listening, so instead I'm going to give you a crash course in exactly this. Prepare yourself. I'm Simon from What Culture, and yes, this is 10 wrestling matches you should never ever watch. Number 10, Gerald Briscoe versus Pat Patterson. Happening at the King of the Ring 2000, the real reason you need to ignore this is because it's an evening gown match. Yep, you get to see two wrestling legends dress up as women trying to tear each other's clothes off. Do I really need to go on? Now, fair play to these two as they threw themselves into it with some real gusto, especially beforehand. There was a backstage segment with Briscoe choosing his outfit, saying if he was gonna do this, he is going to do it right. He then entered to Hulk Hogan's Real American, and afterwards it fell apart. There's way too many homophobic references because one would have been too many. You even get to see Patterson sexually assault Howard Finkel, if that is indeed your thing. It was even a banana, and I'll let you figure that one out because it's obvious. The highlight is that it's clear Jim Ross is also disgusted by this as he tries to keep it together on commentary. It's quite unbelievable in 2020. I mean, who wrote it? Who signed it off? Why did it happen? As already said, just leave it alone. It is not worth it. Number 9, Teddy Long versus Eric Bischoff. Another one that just asked the question of what was the point. This was a match on Survivor Series 2005, and that's a Big Four pay-per-view. And here we are getting general managers warring. As ever, SmackDown and Raw were competing for brand supremacy, and that meant that Eric Bischoff and Teddy Long had to have a fight. Don't ask me, I've no idea. And it's not these guys' fault either. Bischoff isn't a wrestler and Long was a manager and a referee for most of his career, so when they resorted to playing off Eric's karate background, it was the beginning of the end. You can double that when Teddy pretended he was the Karate Kid. There is some humor in the sense that Long threw a shoe at Eazy-E, and you can enjoy this on some level. I mean, it's only 5 minutes and it's so dumb you may laugh your ass off, but still. There were so many other matches that fans both wanted and needed 15 years ago, so opting for what could have been a skit rather than a fully blown scrap would have served everybody far better. Number 8, Triple H versus Scott Steiner. This is a personal one for me because at the Royal Rumble in 2003, I was desperate to see these two go at it. Against popular opinion, I liked both Triple H and Steiner and thought if they were just allowed to kick the crap out of each other, it could work. Alas, that wasn't the case. Already a struggle because the Game and Big Papa Pump weren't big fans of each other, it felt like the aim was to drag the other down rather than try and have a good fight. It's also way too long given who's involved. There should have been more Goldberg, Lesnar than Steamboat Flair, and all either wants to do is slam each other. There's some stomps too, but that's as far as we ever get. It makes no sense because Triple H and Steiner are great at what they do. It's just when they came together, it all fell down. The last kick comes in the sense that the fans aren't that invested, and by the time Scott wins following a stupid DQ finish, well, it's not all that. Just to underline the relationship between these two, go and Google Steiner's opinions on the man with 3 H's. It will make your jaw drop. There's no love loss here. Number 7, fake Rosie O'Donnell versus fake Donald Trump. That's it, that's the reason. Do you want to see someone dress up as Rosie O'Donnell and then fight somebody else pretending to be Donald Trump? No, you don't, so don't do it. A thing that actually happened on Raw in January 2007, it was only done because the pair had fallen out in real life. Rosie had fired some shots at Donald concerning his worth and personal life, to which the now President of the United States retorted by calling the actress an out-of-control loser. Yep, that will stoke the fires. Within the world of the fake, however, O'Donnell threatened to take all of Trump's cash so she could buy herself a big pizza, and this honestly does break down into Donald has money and Rosie isn't thin. My word, it's embarrassing. The crowd hated it so much they began chanting for TNA, and it ended when Trump tried to slam O'Donnell, but she was too big, meaning he collapsed under her weight. I feel bad for even talking about it, it's not right. It was meant to be funny, but really it's just cruel, and aside from Vince McMahon, I don't think anybody wanted or needed to see it, And yet we have. Number 6, Rick Rude versus Masahiro Chono. On paper, it doesn't make sense. How can two guys who are legends not click in the ring? I don't have an answer for you, but back at WCW Halloween Havoc 1992, many say this was the case. As ever though, it came down to ego and relationship. Despite their skills, Rude and Chono decided they weren't going to give each other anything, so they didn't. A collar and elbow tie-up lasts about 56 years, and then finally Rick grabs a headlock. Chono then busts out a suplex before the pair apply holds until no one ever wants to see a hold again. It is so slow because they're making it slow. It's like me just saying the letter T over and over again. Pretty soon you're going to be done with it. If you love abs, you'll get something from it because you get a lot of good shots of Rude's torso, but as a wrestling match, it never springs to life. I suppose both were worried about their spot and tough guy reputation and put that ahead of whatever they were meant to do here. A genuine mystery, like Evolution. Number 5, Diesel versus the British Bulldog. Given that this was on In Your House Great White North, which I don't think I've ever heard anybody chat about, I doubt many are watching this, but still, if you choose to, you're in for a treat between Big Daddy Cool and Davey Boy Smith. The most fascinating part is when Bulldog is working on Diesel's leg, and because of his height, the real-life Kevin Nash is also able to apply a headlock. Don't think I've ever seen that before, and it looks like a bad game of Tetris. Given that neither guy did much of anything else after this, you'd be forgiven for wondering if they had forgotten. With Bret Hart on commentary, Davey Boy also tried a sharpshooter, but can't do it because of how long Diesel's legs are, and it starts to resemble a drunk guy trying to put his keys in the lock. Just fumbling all over the place. This was such a disappointment, Vince McMahon threw his headset onto the floor when the event was over and stormed backstage, and I can only imagine that chat. Cannot have been good. Number 4, Yokozuna versus Mabel. This also happened at Great White North, and I repeat what I said earlier. Just don't watch that event. It also sums up what a weird year WWE was in 1995. People like to pretend that the new generation era didn't have any good workers, but that's not true. What did happen is that Vince McMahon switched from mass monsters after a steroid scandal rocked the company to just big overweight guys to keep this idea of size alive. That's where the problem started. It's not like Yoko and Mabel were bad either. In the right situations, they were great, and to do some of what they did at their size was amazing. But put together, all they did was punch, pretend to be sumo wrestlers, punch, screw up a bulldog, punch, and then both get counted out. My word. If you do stumble upon it, keep an eye on Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji, who do their best to keep the magic alive as they manage their asses off. But if somebody told me that neither guy was bothered here, I'd believe it. It is such a struggle. Number 3, Oz versus Tim Parker. There is one reason to watch this, Oz's entrance. The character, which was played by Kevin Nash if you don't know, is joined on the way to the ring by the cast of The Wizard of Oz, and it's hilarious. And rubbish, mostly because Oz has an awful green outfit on and is made to wear white contact lenses. Nash then spends most of this shouting, "I will show the world who Oz really is," and when I tell you this happened at WCW Super Bowl in 1991 and I've still no idea what that means, well, that sums it up. That is the whole point of this too. The match itself barely goes 30 seconds, but everything around it is so campy and weird, you don't need to inflict it on your brain. Nash's facial expressions are also so over the top, you'll wonder if you know he's doing it. The gimmick was so ridiculous it dragged Nash right down, even if he did have the look any wrestling company would want. I have no idea what they were thinking, but it is mad all around by World Championship Wrestling, and more proof that long before 2001, they were still a risk to simply terrible moments. Number 2, Stevie Ray versus Conan. World War III may be a pretty good name for a pay-per-view, but in 1998 no WCW fan really cared about that. It also made no sense that there was more than one show called World War III, but whatever. Surely when that one is done and you have the next one, it would be World War IV. I don't know why I even care. When Stevie Ray faced Conan though, it should have been the end of this battle. There's stories out there of Ray being upset with Dave Meltzer when he balked at his WWE Hall of Fame inclusion, and I get that. Harlem Heat were a great tag team and deserved the nod. That's not what this was, however. As well as a kick missing by a mile and Conan still bumping, there was a chin lock facing away from the hard camera, which is far more jarring than you'd think because you're so used to it the other way around. He even had a clubbing forearm as a signature move. It does seem a tad unfair to lay into this, as it was just one of those occasions where nothing went right. Happens to all of us, but it's still something we should leave in the past and pretend never happened. Number 1, Finlay and Hornswoggle versus Boogeyman and Little Boogeyman. This was a comedy match. I'm sure you know this and can work it out, but when you have Little Boogeyman listed as one part of a tag team, you're allowed to worry. A lot. It's not for the reason you may think though. Instead of being an absolutely ludicrous scenario, it was simply really dull. For example, the match started with Finlay applying a wrist lock to the Boogeyman. Huh? I thought this was supposed to be a voodoo witch doctor, and now he's selling a hold that makes his arm go ow. Why doesn't he use his magic stick to make Fit disappear? It was never made clear that the Boogeyman was all meant to be in the character's own head and was presented like he had magic powers, so somebody please explain this. This had to be daft to succeed, and it just wasn't. And sure, Little Boogeyman attacked Finlay with his ass before getting booted in the head, but this was booked solely to make Vince McMahon laugh, and it's not worth your time. It's also a little bit sad. Know of any other wrestling matches you should never ever watch? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles, and follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. My name is Simon from What Culture. I appreciate you being with me today, and I'll speak to you again soon.